I don't know if you can see the rain, but we're working in Ireland, in the rain, outside. The joys of being a mechanic. Right, we have a 2006 Hyundai Sonata, and we having issues with the suspension. It's failed the test on the suspension and on the inner tie rod. So it looks fairly bad to do, but it's not too bad. What we need to do is we need to release the bottom nut and bolt to take the fork off. Then we have a bolt. Then we have the bolt from the fork to the actual shock here. We've got to take off things like the ABS sensor and brake line, just take them off there. You can see the shock is actually leaking this side. And then just the 3 bolts on the top as normal. Then take off the spring, compress it, put the new shock on. So let me just get a few things off first and I'll show you how I'm getting on. It's a 19mm nuts at the bottom to take this off. I used a powerful impact gun. I didn't need to hold this with a 17mm spanner. But what I did need to do is just hit it out of the way. So what I did is I just hand tightened the bolt back on, used a hammer, and this way you do not damage any of the threads. And as you can see, we can get it out. Just get a punch now and we can get it out the rest of the way. Right, I've taken the drop link off. That's a 17mm. Then I've taken off the 2 12mm bolts here, which just hold on the ABS sensor and the brake line. Then what I've done is just give it a couple of slaps with the hammer here, and then taken the 17mm bolt that holds the fork to the actual shock. The bolts are still on the top, so it's still held by the top, but we need to get this fork off now. And as you can see, it is loose. And because we've taken it from the bottom, this fork should just slide down. As you can see, I can do it by hand now. You might want to do it with the hammer if it's a bit stuck, but you can see, look, you can practically do it by hand, and then take the 3 bolts off the top, and this can come up down that way. And then it's just 3 14mm bolts at the top. Just make sure you slide this wire underneath the shock, and then it should just come out that way. There we go. Now we can separate that and put the new shock on. Right, there's the old shock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to think outside the box here, and if it doesn't work I'm going to have to go back to my shed and actually compress this with my spring compressor, because I haven't got any with me. But I'm going to put this back in the car and I'm going to jack the car up. It's only a couple of bolts. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and let the car compress this spring to put the bolt on. So once I got it all in place, I'll show you what I mean. Right, so there's the shock. I've put the spring and this top mount back on, and now hopefully I can feed everything through and jack up the car to compress the spring. Right, unfortunately I couldn't do what I wanted to do. It would have worked, but the spring is just too much of a gap for me to try and push this down. So I'm just going to go back to my garage to do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take off the inner tie rod, replace the inner tie rod and the track rod end, and then do the spring. So 24mm we've loosened off this, and this is a 17mm we've taken out the pin, and now hopefully we can just undo this, take it all off. Right, we've taken off the track rod end. It's failed on the inner tie rod, but we're going to replace everything. I've taken off the clip the far side. I've counted the threads. Now it's very important. Now you can actually see the threads, how many threads were exposed, but it's still good to count them, so you know when you put the new one back you're going to get roughly within, you know, reason, quite close to the original tracking. But whenever you do anything like this, you're always best to get it tracked anyway, but at least you can kind of get it quite close, so you can drive it to your nearest garage to get it tracked rather than, you know, destroy your tire. And even if you think you've got it good, believe me, just go and get it tracked. I can't do it one-handed. Nope. Right, and there we go. I can't feel any play in that, but anyway, it's failed, so we'll change it. Right, this is the set I'm using. It's the Laser 6576. It's not cheap, but it's good. Right, so all we do is we put the correct head on for whatever size inner tie rod we need, which in this case happens to be the second one, so the middle one, the middle one, because it's not the smallest and it's not the biggest. And then 32mm socket at the end, or just, as you can see, 1/2 inch ratchet. Right, so this is my setup. I'm not going to be able to do it one-handed, but we'll just crack that, get it undone, put the new one on. Alright, the machine is awesome, the little gadget. Now on this particular case you can use, I think it's a 36mm spanner, which will go on there, but I don't have a 36mm spanner with me, so I have the other tool and it works perfect. The only issue with a 32mm spanner is when you jack it up, you might not have enough room from the top to the bottom if you jacked it up. But with this tool it's just so much easier. Right, so there we go. You can see that's the big one, small one, and I use the middle one. And it just makes life so much easier. If you're anything like me, you hate compressing springs, so I had to come back to actually do this. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, hold on, Leon, haven't you got that £3,500 FACOM thing that compresses springs? Yes, I do, but because of this spring, the way it's tapered, and yeah, all copying all the Japanese stuff, it just won't go on. Well, it will, but it's just going to get caught and it's just going to be awkward. I could do it, but I'm going to be fighting with it, where this £150 spring compressor, which is still lethal, does it. So yeah, maze balls, isn't it? I hate compressing springs. This spring, you want to make sure you've got the top and the bottom, you can just see, is going to line up. Now once I release the tension, it will line up. I don't want to put my finger close, but you'll see what I mean. So if I release the tension on this, now, see that? That's gone into its stop there. And it was, you've seen it, there's no tension on this now. I can put my finger there. Well, there is tension in the spring, but you know what I mean. So yeah, make sure that, because that will fail the test, but not only that, it's not going to be in its proper position. It's going to be too high compared to the side, and it could make banging and clanging noises all over. There we go. Now we've got to fit it and finish the job. So we have a helper with us now, don't we? Eh? We're back at the car. There's the spring. Now let me just kind of reiterate. The FACOM spring compressor I was using, with the fingers that I've got connected to it, won't compress the spring properly without getting caught down here. If I change the fingers in it, but I haven't got them, then it would easily do that. It's just the fingers that I've got connected to it won't. There is our tie rod and track rod end. So I'm just going to get this fitted and then we're good to go. What you have to be careful of, you can see this little thing sticking down here and this cutout, that's where the bolt has to go. The little cutout comes in the back and lines up, you get the camera in, lines up with this hole here. That's how you know you've got it in the right amount, because as you can see the metal here, this metal lip touches on here, and you know you've got it at the right orientation. That just went in by hand with a little bit of a wiggle. It really wasn't bad. And I've got the bottom bolt in, so now I can actually tighten them, because there's no bushings here, there's no nothing. Well, actually no, sorry, I can't. I have to jack up the car here to tighten this bottom one, because otherwise I'll be putting pressure on that bushing. So we can tighten this one no problem, but we can't tighten that one without lifting the suspension up. Right, we are all done. Job done, everything is fine. And now it should pass the test. So sorted. So as always, hope it helps. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Don't forget, links up here, links down below, but most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.